The moment was quiet, but it carried the weight of a political earthquake. In Ottawa, beneath the soft hum of cameras and the respectful stillness of Métis elders, Mark Carney stood at the podium. He didn't shout, he didn't slam his fist, but every word was a strike, not just against economic complacency, but against the shadow of America's dominance. Days earlier, President Donald Trump had slammed Canada with a brutal 35% tariff on its goods, a move meant to punish, to pressure, to remind Ottawa who calls the shots in North American trade. But Carney's reply wasn't defiance wrapped in anger. It was something far more dangerous for Washington, a blueprint for a future where Canada no longer needs the United States. On August 1, 2025, Donald Trump signed off on a sweeping economic strike against his northern neighbor, a 35% tariff across multiple Canadian exports, hitting everything from raw materials to finished goods. His justification? America first, a claim that Canada had enjoyed an unfair advantage in trade, a suggestion that national security demanded a reset. For decades, Canada and the U.S. had been one another's most trusted economic partners. They shared the longest undefended border in the world, intertwined supply chains, and a mutual dependence so deep that the idea of one turning on the other felt unthinkable. But this wasn't a one-off disagreement over dairy quotas or timber disputes. Trump's tariff was a clear message. The United States is no longer offering free access to its market. And it wasn't just Canada in the crosshairs. The U.S. was shifting its entire approach, charging allies for the privilege of doing business, treating friendship as a transaction. For Ottawa, the question was simple but urgent: adapt or be economically cornered. Carney's answer came at the Ottawa summit with Métis leaders. Officially, it was a meeting to discuss Bill C-5, the Building Canada Act. In reality, it was the unveiling of a new economic doctrine. "We can't solely count on what had been our most valued trading relationship," Carney said, his tone measured but unmistakable. The old model, reliance on a single massive partner, was over. The new plan? Resilience, unity, true partnership at home. The government was injecting $1.25 billion into the softwood lumber industry, a sector gutted by decades of U.S. trade actions. But this wasn't just about propping up businesses for survival. It was about redirecting capital toward Indigenous-led forestry projects, new markets, and diversified exports, liquidity for companies, training for workers, support for entrepreneurs ready to break into Asia, Europe, and beyond. The heart of Bill C-5 redefines what counts as a project of national interest, not pipe dreams, not ribbon-cutting photo ops, but infrastructure with a high probability of success: ports, energy corridors, mineral development, and clean growth trade routes. And central to every project, Indigenous partnership from day one, not as a formality, but as a foundation. It was a strategic pivot, but also a symbolic one. Canada was no longer asking, "Why should we build this?" but "How can we build this?" and, critically, how to build it without depending on Washington's permission. On the U.S. economy, Trump's tariffs might have been designed to flex economic muscle, but the reality on the ground is more complicated. American ports that once bustled with Canadian goods could slow. U.S. manufacturers who rely on Canadian raw materials may face higher costs, which could mean higher prices for American consumers. The blowback could land in unexpected places: small businesses, Midwestern factories, construction projects waiting on affordable timber. On Canada, in the short term, certain sectors will feel pain. But Carney's bet is that redirecting trade, strengthening domestic industries, and investing in infrastructure will pay off. By fast-tracking projects under Bill C-5, Canada aims to create supply chains that stretch east to Europe, west to Asia, and deep into its own northern territories. On the world market, this move feeds into a larger global trend: the slow but steady shift away from U.S. economic centrality. As countries diversify trade partners and experiment with non-dollar transactions, the world trade map is redrawing itself. In this landscape, Canada's pivot could make it a bridge between Western economies and emerging markets, a position of leverage rather than dependency. This isn't happening in isolation. Around the world, major economies are recalibrating. The BRICS bloc is expanding. Energy deals are being signed in yuan, not dollars. Trade corridors are being built to bypass U.S. influence entirely. Trump's America, intentionally or not, is signaling to its allies that loyalty comes second to leverage. And countries are responding, not with military alliances, but with economic ones. Carney's Canada isn't turning anti-American. It's turning post-American. In his vision, the country's prosperity isn't tied to the mood swings of a White House administration. It's built on ports humming with ships bound for multiple continents, rail lines connecting resource-rich regions to global markets, and Indigenous-led enterprises that turn local knowledge into global advantage. Visually, it's a sharp contrast. On one side, U.S. ports sitting quieter, their cranes idle between fewer container ships. On the other, Canadian harbors buzzing, not with dependence on one neighbor, but with trade routes stretching in all directions. In the end, this is bigger than tariffs. It's about identity. Trump's move was about power, the ability to dictate terms. Carney's reply is about sovereignty, the ability to set your own. Canada isn't breaking up with the United States, but it is moving out of the shared house, getting its own place, and deciding its own rules. This is how superpowers and the countries that orbit them evolve. If history remembers this moment, it won't be for the tariff numbers or the specific policy clauses. It will be for the quiet way Canada began to rewrite its future. America wasn't pushed out. It was quietly replaced. Is this how superpowers fade? Through silence, not shock? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and subscribe for more deep dive analysis. This story isn't over yet, and the next chapter could change the map of North American power forever.